Okay, so this is the 1996 Toyota Tacoma, what they call a 5-lug or a 2-wheel drive. So it's a smaller, shorter to the ground kind of in-city pickup, not the off-road version. It has a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder motor in it, and this is me doing the starter replacement. And I just decided to make a video on it because another video was helpful, but you know, never hurts to have more than one source. So I'm up in underneath the car right now, or the truck right now, and I removed where that gold threaded nut or rod was right there. I removed the main positive battery cable, which is now sitting right here, and then that little clip. You know, the key on those type of clips is just to push them in really hard to be sure they're in there all the way, and then push on the little retaining piece. It's right there where that little rectangle hole is. And then oftentimes they just slide back with one-handed operation. Guys will sometimes say they were really hard, and it's because that connector was already pulled out a little bit. And so it's really key just to kind of push in on them first and then push down, and it'll just normally pop right back pretty easily in my experience. Now we're gonna have to remove this bolt here, which is relatively simple. The other bolt is on the other side of it. You can barely see the head of it right there. Let's turn this on and see if that helps at all. Okay, you can barely see the top of it up there. So rather than get a series of extensions and mess around with stuff that you guys may not have access to, I'm gonna go and remove that guy right there. Bam. And that's gonna take our dipstick tube out for our transmission, and that's actually split in the center right there. So I think it's gonna slip right apart right there. I'm gonna wipe that goop and gunk off of there, and then slide that whole tube assembly out of my way, and I should be able to get it with just basic ratchet and socket from underneath. So I'm gonna pause it right now while I take that off, and then I'll let you know if that's how it went. Hopefully I kept the orientation on the camera right there. This is just a piece of whiteboard I used to lay underneath the rig. It makes it a lot easier than this gravel I'm working on. So this is the dipstick tube, comes right out. You know, so there's a little O-ring right there, and once you take that bolt off, that was the bracket that held it on. Just kind of, you pull the dipstick out and then you slide it right out of the tube. I went ahead and wiped it all down because why not get all the gunk off of there while it's out of the truck. And then now we'll be able to set it aside someplace where it won't get dirty. And then now we should be able to hit that back bolt without any issue. One of the tricks I use, which you guys probably already know this, most people watching this video, but I always pull the new part out. I write down on the new part what year and everything it was. So 4/1/22, it's actually tomorrow, but I just didn't want to write 31 with a fat marker. The number of miles it has on there approximately, where I bought it from. And then in my mileage log I keep in the glove compartment, or my maintenance log, I'll have in there how much I paid for it, what location I bought it from, what city, how many miles exactly, maybe an invoice number, and what kind of warranty period it has, so that I know if this ever fails again, I know where I got it from. It could be 5 years from now, I might forget. But I pull the part out, so the new part, so I can see where those bolts are, and that way I know where to look for the other mounting point. So when I go under there, we're going to pull that back bolt off, and let's just take a look real quick. I'm going to slide under you guys on. Alright. You know, as we look at it, our bolt is up there, but now we got some room where I think I can get to it with just a regular ratchet, you know, with maybe a 3-inch extension and a deep well socket on it. Looks like a 14. And so I'm going to try to get that back one off first, and that way this bottom one here is holding this all in place nice and tight, so you're not fighting the weight of the starter falling down on an awkward bolt. So I will come back and let you guys know how that went, but the bolt is basically right here back behind the bell housing there. And so the other option would be, if you had the extensions and this doesn't work, you can just run an extension all the way back here around the transmission, so you'd be back in this little void, and then put a U-joint on the end of a large extension that's about 30 inches or so, and then be able to kind of break it off that way. I find that's harder to access, and then also you guys may not have all those extensions, and then it's harder to put it back on. So we'll try it this way, see if it's any easier. Okay, I thought I'd come back and show you just one little trick that I often use. A lot of times I will take the socket, the deep well socket, and put it on the blind fastener, the one I can't see, and that way I can see that nice shiny chrome. It's a little bit harder to see because my flashlight died. Let's see if I can get it back on here. Okay, so you can see that flashy, nice shiny chrome, and then you kind of know like behind it like how much room you've got, and if you need a U-joint or not, or if you can get your socket right onto there pretty easily. And same thing with if you went behind that and did the whole long extension trick, to back over here, then you would actually know like, okay, now all I have to do is fit that square extension into my socket instead of trying to fuddle with it, being on there. And fuddle is a combination of fuck with it and fiddle with it. So this way you can, you don't have to fuddle with it. You can just kind of put it on there and know that it's pretty easy to get to. Because with those extensions on there, it can be kind of tough to find. Are you on the bolt? And you don't want to risk stripping it and everything. So I often go that way and work way backwards a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I did get my standard ratchet that I use on there. This is, I guess, I say standard, but if you do any kind of automotive work, I recommend getting this one. It's probably the one I use 90% of the time, because there's not a lot of clearance to swing that, as you can see there. So you're going to need to have a more professional ratchet than your standard Craftsman or cheapy ratchet, because the ratchet will have a higher tooth count, and so you don't need very much swing or arc room to be able to get the ratchet to operate. This one, however, does something kind of cool. I'll try to do this with the phone in my hand here. Okay, so I've already broke this thing loose, and of course now it comes out of the socket. But so breaking it loose, I can move it just a little bit at a time, and then once I get this thing, you can't really see it that well, but I'm twisting the handle, which helps me to get maximum movement out of that. And then once it's kind of getting loose, I can actually twist this handle here, and it will cause that ratchet to move. So I'm just twisting with my thumbs like this, and it makes that ratchet move, which makes it really nice for these hard to get to areas where you don't have much arc. Once that bolt is loose, just spin your hand like that, and that bolt will work itself off. So it's it's definitely one of my favorite tools. They have them available even at Walmart now, I think. Definitely at the auto parts store, and I think this one here is a Matco tool, and I want to say it was around $50. It wasn't too terribly expensive, but it's a good quality unit. And here's a motion of what that looks like when you spin this thing here. So you just twist it, and it's moving that head around just like that, just in this motion. So that's really handy for a lot of reasons. Okay, there's the bolt right there, about 2.5 incher, and yeah, I picked these little rubber deals up, these silicone trays at Lowe's. There's like a 3 set, so there's the other part out there, but it's nice because you can just kind of, when you're under the car, drag and pull your stuff around, and kind of keeps them from messing about. Or if you're working on the top of the rig, you can just set it in the engine compartment, and it keeps the spot from losing bolts and nuts. And they're about $29, not too bad. So with that guy out, now we're going to go and remove this easy one, which is right here, and then that should free the starter up. And I mean, this thing is maybe a 30-minute job for somebody who's reasonably competent mechanically, and maybe an hour to 2 hours if you were a bit newer, but semi-familiar with mechanics. So let's go ahead and pull that guy off, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. Okay, so now that I've got that last bolt out there, I got my hand on the back of the starter, right? And didn't really have to. It's still held in there pretty good, so it's not like it came falling down. Now we just got to back that starter out a little bit, and then just work it down from the hole. Okay, so here's the old starter out. The guy I bought it from, it said that, yeah, he just got this starter. They said it was actually the guy's dad who owned it, a Hispanic fella that didn't speak any English, I don't think, since his son was kind of interpreting. And the dad wasn't there, his son was selling him to help it out, or to help his dad out. And he said, well, I think he just did something with the starter because it was having trouble. Clearly it wasn't a new starter, and within a couple days of getting it, pretty much was doing the standard click, 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 telltale sign of a bad starter, which if that ever happens, you can just continue to turn the key repeatedly. It'll click, 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 and eventually it will catch in most cases, and allow you at least to get it home, and then try not to shut it off again, and try to get it to your shop or your house or to the mechanic, so you don't have to pay a tow bill. And so I just drove mine right over to the AutoZone. I got the replacement starter, a brand new one, 156 bucks I think it was. And then I, without shutting it off, drove right to my place and took it out back and got it. I shut it off and took this out of it because otherwise I was worried it wasn't going to get started again. So this is the old one, the new one about to go in right there. And that's pretty much, installation was reversed. It came out real easy. Had to twist it a little bit and move it around some stuff to get it out. But we'll throw that new one in there, and that should complete the project. So I'll show you a shot of it when it's all back in. Keep hoping that this thing is not flipping upside down when I keep moving my phone around, but that's the new one installed. It was pretty simple. Just installed it in the reverse. So I'm going to go ahead and put the dipstick down here now. I'm going to catch the dipstick into that tube right there, and then I will reattach it with the bracket and the bolt that goes in right there. And then it goes without saying, of course, I thought, well, it would go without saying it's common sense, but common sense not being as common as it once were. Plus, people may not know this, and it doesn't hurt me to say it. Always remove the negative battery cable and wrap it with a cloth or something before you work on anything, because otherwise, when you take this positive cable off right there, if you touch a wrench or anything to any other metal component, it'll spark and arc and weld itself to those components. So just make certain that's your first step when you do it. All right, battery all hooked back in. Let's go ahead and walk on over and see about ignore the mess. And let's give her a whirl. Starts up like a dream. Easy peasy. So that one is complete. And just show the truck, just so you know, like, this is kind of what they look like. They're the smaller ones. And that's the guide for that 2.4 liter 1996 to, I believe it's 1996 to 98. There was a body update, and so it should be the same for most of the engines that are the 2.4 liter. There's a 2.4, a 2.7, and then I think a 3.4 that's a V6. But in the 4 cylinders, there's 2 different types. This one was more common, but it should be the same application on all of those 2.4 liters for the Toyotas that year.